the session. Okay, so great. Just to get started, I am going to go ahead and tell you a little bit more about who we are. Just let me know in the chat box again if you can hear and see the slides. So who are we at Advantage Africa? Please, just to confirm, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So Advantage Africa, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and just let you see what I've shared and just talk briefly to that. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so we are an education consulting firm, and what we do is basically to support education institutions and universities across Africa in terms of educational development, in terms of advancement services for these institutions. And as you can see, we are an education advancement firm that focuses on helping educational institutions across Africa to generate and implement innovative ideas for their institutions' development. We also provide education career development support for students and for graduates. So as you can see, our mission is basically to transform higher education institutions in Africa into hubs, the highly desirable study destinations for people irrespective of age, gender, background, and social status. So basically, we are providing all of this support to really get people to transform higher education systems in Africa. And we know that one of the major things that we can do in order to improve the quality of education in the country, in our respective countries across Africa and globally is basically through research. So why are we doing what we're doing today? You can see from the promotions is basically this is open to education researchers, lecturers, and so on. I would not want to bore you with so much stories, but I will just go on and share this next slide. Just to give a little background into Education Research Network. This network is a community of researchers who are passionate about solving the problems facing educational development in Africa. And what we try to do is to create this platform, this community and this network that provides us support for people irrespective of where they are and what level of expertise they have or they are in terms of education research, just so we can collaborate and work together in transforming the education sector. We're providing a platform for scholars, researchers, lecturers, and other stakeholders to have access to quality information on current realities, best practices, and funding strategies while furthering the conversation and revamping our education systems. As an intellectual hub for learning and sharing, we are facilitating, sorry, I think that was a little faster there. We are facilitating collaboration among key stakeholders and empowering education researchers in Africa to lead social change and global transformation. So I wanted to talk a little bit more, but because of our time, I'm going to just stop here. So it is therefore with great pleasure that I officially welcome you to the first virtual session of the Education Research Network and to the network itself. Today, we will be listening to two brilliant speakers who will be telling us a little bit more about education research and issues of financing, because that's a very, very important one. The aspect of financing actually came in when we're having the forum, and we knew we needed to address this in the first session. So our first speaker today is Dr. Sunday Olanyo, and our second speaker is Onye Ngwocha. So it is my pleasure to welcome you again, everyone, and also to appreciate everyone who has joined us and also members of the team who has worked tirelessly in making this happen. So without further ado, let me go on to introducing the first speaker. Dr. Sunday Olanyo, who is already here, is a development advocate and who specializes in education for sustainable development as well as social justice. He is the founder of Lead Nigeria, an NGO that is committed to developing and mobilizing youth for literacy, advocacy, and community development. He is a certified education for justice trainer through the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Dr. Olanyo holds academic and research fellowship positions with Adekunle Ajasin University in Nigeria and the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. He is also a fellow of the Project Social Impact Institute in Kingston, Massachusetts, in the United States of America. As thought leader, he is committed to supporting other scholars and researchers in the field of education across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Olanyo as he takes us through his first presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon from Akungba Akoko here in Ondo State, Nigeria. And good morning, good evening to everyone on this platform, depending on which part of the world you are joining us from. I would like to, first of all, give thanks to God for the enablement, for giving us the privilege to be alive in the midst of this pandemic. And I would also like to appreciate the convener of this platform, Advantage Africa, for these opportunities to share a few things with, with every participant today, and to also learn from every one of us. And I would like to say that whatever the issue of education research is being discussed, I think we should be very, very much interested, because to me, I always say that everything rises and falls on education. And as we go on in today's presentation, I want to believe that you will all agree with me that everything rises and falls on education. So without taking much of our time, I would like to go straight to the presentation for today. Permit me to share my screen. Okay. Yes. Can you all see my screen, please?
Yes, Doctor, we can, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Good. All right, great. Thanks. So today I will quickly want to talk about advancing education research in Africa, moving the elephant from the room to where it should be. And I believe that we all know that education is a germane issue, especially in Africa. We cannot shy away from the fact that our educational system in Africa has a lot of, in terms of what to improve on. And as scholars, as practitioners, as teachers, as educators, we cannot shy away from it. We need to keep on discussing it. We need to keep on talking about it, so that at the end of the day, those areas that needs improvement will be improved. So I want to liken education to an elephant that has been restricted to the room. It has been restricted to the room because we all know when UNESCO said a certain percentage of our budget, our national budget, should be allocated to education. If all of us that are here, especially people from the African continent, can study the budgetary allocation that our government is actually devoting to education on a yearly basis, we know that we really have a long way to go. And that is why I compare it to an elephant in the room. And we all know that no nation can grow beyond the quality of its education, research, and development. If any nation wants to attain sustainable development, educational sector must be prioritized. And when we are talking about prioritizing the educational sector, we are not just talking about rhetorics. We are talking about taking action towards improving the educational sector. I think there is a current dialogue or conference that is going on in the United Kingdom, which is Global Education Summit. And the major reason why the global leaders are actually meeting in the United Kingdom is because of a particular gap that has been identified in the sector of education. And for that gap to be filled, educational research must actually be prioritized. And, there is this popular quote from the former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, which says that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So what this means actually is that education is the game changer. If we want to improve on the decayed state of many things in our society today, education must be looked into keenly. And that takes me to this particular slide that actually shows the state of education in Africa. And, I was trying to, think about several challenges that many educational sector in Africa are actually facing. And I discovered that there is this issue of passive learning that most teachers are still trying to emphasize. When most of our teachers comes together or when they get to the classroom, they still expect learners to listen to them hook, line, and sinker without challenging whatever idea that they are passing across to them. And I think the world has moved from that. Then we also place emphasis on school uniforms. Recently, I was reading a piece of news in the newspaper, and they were talking about, in a particular state in Nigeria, people were debating whether the Muslim students should be putting on hijab to school or not. I was wondering, what is the connection between school uniform and attainment of educational goal? Because I've been privileged to be in some places, and I think in 2014, I was privileged to be in the US, and I was shocked to see that the students in the US are not actually putting on uniform to schools. So the students are allowed to wear whatever they think, whatever the parent feels is going to keep the student warm, and they go to school like that. Then we also see that the issue of religion is another thing that is being dragged in the sector of education in most of the African nations. And there is this emphasis on calculation, mathematics, statistics. I'm not saying that those things are not very important. They are actually important. But there are many educational issues that can be solved without actually hammering on some of these things. And I know that I believe many of us that are actually doing postgraduate research, you will agree with me that there are some scholars that believe that if your research is not actually revealing some statistics, then they will look at you and say that you are not actually doing a good research. But I believe the world has moved from that into action research and some other aspect of research in education that can help a scholar to arrive at the stated objectives. Then we also have this issue of outdated courses. I was wondering why our universities are retaining some courses that I think are not actually contributing to the current issues in our society today. So it's one of the things that we really need to be talking about. Then there is this learning that are disrupted in many of our societies as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19. You will agree with me that many African countries could not forge ahead in teaching and learning because we were not prepared. Many of us, it was after the outbreak of COVID-19 that we were trying to beef up our e-learning technologies so that we'll be able to forge ahead in the area of teaching and learning. Some of these things constitute a cog in the wheel of our development in terms of educational research in Africa. And our primary objective today is actually to look at how to overcome some of these challenges. Now, talking about the elephant that should be moved from the room to where it should be. I believe as an individual, as a researcher, that education in Africa today, or let me say educational-based research in Africa today, should concern itself with issues-based or problem-based education. And if we actually want to actually do justice to this, the first thing we need to do is to look at what is working in our educational system and what is not working. If I may ask you to actually do a kind of individual examination or individual X-ray of an educational system in your country, I want to believe that we should be able to identify some things that are working, and we should be able to identify numerous things that are not working. When we are talking about Nigeria as a context now, let me just not say education. Let me say generally, based on the current issues now that everybody is talking about, what are the things that people are wondering, why is this thing working? And I want to use the example of the rate of COVID-19 on the continent of Africa, especially in Nigeria. Many people are wondering, why is it that we have a very low cases of COVID-19 infection on the continent of Africa, particularly in Nigeria? Because even scientists themselves have made a lot of projections that Africa is going to suffer a big blow, that there are going to be dead bodies on the street of Africa, and many of those statements that were made by some people in the past. But we discovered that despite the huge number of fatalities as a result of COVID-19, Africa still have, a very low cases, especially in Nigeria. And that's one of the things that are working. But when you look at educational system, you see that we have a lot of things that are not working. And it is our duty, it is our responsibilities as researchers, as scholars, to fix those things that are not working through research. Because if we say education is the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world, then educational research is the most powerful weapon that can be used to respond to some of these issues that are facing our education sector. And if we actually want to respond to some of these issues, then we need to look at how our education research are contributing to knowledge. I want to believe that we've all heard about knowledge production in research, knowledge contribution, knowledge sharing. So those are the things that can actually help us to respond to those issues in education using educational research. And when we are talking about contribution to knowledge, we can actually look at it in different ways.
Doctor,
the first one is literature.
Can you hear me?
When you look at literature, what are the gaps that have been identified? What are the things that literature have said, and how can we also add our voices to it? Then when we are talking about policy, our research can contribute to policy development, policy restructuring. We all have national education policies in our different countries. What are the things that are lacking in our policies that our education research can bridge the gap? Then our educational research can also contribute to dialogue. What are the different dialogues that are ongoing among the educational scholars? What we are doing today is a dialogue. And we can bring the result of our educational research into this particular dialogue in order to enrich it. Then we are also talking about practice. There is a difference between theory and practice. And what area of practice are we going to improve through our educational research? Then we also talk about agenda. There are different agendas. We have local agenda, national agenda, international agenda. Talking about international agenda, a very good example is the Sustainable Development Goals. So how can our educational research, lead to the achievement of each of the 17 goals under the Sustainable Development Goals? How can our research contribute to the reduction of poverty, contribute to the reduction of hunger, contribute to achieving gender equality and all that? So I believe that these are the things that educational research should be addressing in this 21st century. Yeah, because of our time, I'm just going to I'm going to stop on this slide, and I want to do a kind of call to action to all of us here. I believe we have researchers, we have professors of education, we have graduate students in education, we have practitioners in education. To all these current issues that are burning in our continent, how do we channel research to respond to some of these issues? Now, the number one on this list is funding. And I was really excited this morning when I woke up, and I woke up to this news that the president of my country, President Muhammad Buhari, has committed to improving the funding of education by 50%. And, it's a cheering news, actually, because we all know that funding is that big things that we really need to respond to if we actually want to improve the state of education in our continent. Then we have this issue of out-of-school children. In Nigeria, it used to be 10.5 million out-of-school children. I think because of the outbreak of COVID-19 now, majority of the students that were in school before have been kicked out of school. And that number has increased. So how do we respond to the problem of out-of-school children in our society? Then we have this problem of banditry, which I believe is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. I used to think that banditry is only in this side of the world, but I think I learned recently about some other countries that are also facing this problem. How do we respond to this? The issue of e-learning. E-learning now has been adopted massively because there is no alternative to it. When the government of different countries announced lockdown last year, we all know what happened. The majority of us could not even leave our respective homes.
Doc,
learning were also disrupted.
If we can round up, sir. If you can round up.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm just going to round up from here. Then we have homeschooling. We have a Majiri problem in Nigeria, particularly the nomadic people. Then we have this problem of high rate of attrition among high school learners. We have this issue of social cohesion that we need to respond to. Education for social justice. SDGs have responded to it. Then collaborative research is also an area that as scholars, as researchers, we need to work on. And that's where I actually want to appreciate the convener of this platform, because I want to believe that this particular meeting is going to introduce us into how we can collaborate with each other and how we can network in order to respond to some of the problems that our societies are facing. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that presentation and for taking us through that journey of introducing us to some key information that we need to know regarding education research and how relevant that is to the world that we live in. And currently, I was also following the Global Partnership for Education conference going on, and a lot of countries are pledging to improving their education resources in terms of allocation, budgetary allocation to education, and how they seek to improve the education sector through financing. And I think issue of financing is something that we can never underestimate in terms of the capacity that the things that funding can do in terms of revamping the education sector and improving the quality of research that we actually do as well. So thank you for leading us into that. And the next presentation is actually majorly on financing. And so I think this is really, really an important conversation that we're having. So if you have any question, please, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to ask us, and we're compiling all the questions to ask afterwards. But right now, I'm going to pass on the microphone to the next speaker. Thank you again, Dr. Sunday, for that presentation. The next speaker is Onye Ngocha. She is an education and development consultant with a focus on education financing. Her work and research focus largely on the effective, efficient, and innovative mobilization of additional resources for education through public and private sector. She currently leads the Education Investments Unit at the Education Partnership Center a pioneering education research and consultancy organization in Nigeria. Onyinye is an alumnus of the Chevening Awards with a postgraduate degree in international education and development from the University of Sussex, United Kingdom. She is a qualitative researcher, a writer, and a change maker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Onyinye Nkocha as she talks about financing education research in Africa.
Oh, I just realized I was muted.
Welcome, Onyinye, welcome.
Okay.
So thank you very much, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm very happy to be sharing the stage with very resourceful education experts. And I think it's a very timely event, given that we're having the Global Education Summit going on right now in the United Kingdom. And to think also that the focus of this is actually to raise more funds or more financing for education. That just underscores the point that financing for education is very important. Not that money is going to solve the problem of education, because like more money doesn't solve the problem. I think the focus right now and what world leaders have come to understand is that it's efficient and effective allocation of resources that would solve the problem. And so I'm very happy to be sharing the stage today. And we don't have much time. Louis already told me I have very little time, so I'm just going to try and go right into it. Thank you very much, Dr. Sunday, for that very succinct presentation as well. I think it's a very good place to start from. So for strategies for accessing research funds, a good entry point would be just to say that there are different pathways to research, and therefore there are different funding mechanisms for research. I personally work in a consultancy, so we have, I work in a consultancy, so I would try as much as I can to be broad, but it somehow might seem like I would be talking more from a consultancy side of assessing funds, but I would try to make it as broad and general as possible. So like I said, like there are different pathways for assessing research funds, and therefore there are different mechanisms for assessing this research funds as well. And a research actor could be students, could be a university or university department. It could be research institutes or consultancy, think tanks, private organizations, public sector agencies, or even individuals. And so because there are different pathways to research, therefore there are different types of research funding. And I think it's just important to point this out. So for some kind of research funding, like some could be targeted at projects grants, like they could come as project grants. And this could be either for specific funder defined projects. That is, the funder may have specifically defined the objectives for commissioning a research. And so if you're applying to such kinds of research, you already know that you're not coming with your own ideas. You're going to be presenting a proposal that is in line with what the funder has stated to be the objective for commissioning the research. It could also be research provided for projects that are open to the applicants' own conceived ideas. And in that kind of research, you have leeway to come up with your own ideas and propose your ideas, provided that you're able to thoroughly defend and propose your ideas and the relevance of your research to the body of knowledge. So there are also research grants to support academic papers for conferences. We have research grants for fellowships. They could come in form of fellowships as well. It could come in form of scholarships, because some scholarships, like some master's scholarships, are actually master's research scholarships. So you can have this kind of research. You have market research, you have social research. There are different kinds of research. So just to have that sorted out. And because we have different kinds of research pathways, therefore there are different kinds of, there are other or different sources rather for assessing research funding. One way to go will be government agencies. And for government agencies, typically for us in Nigeria, we don't exactly have a national research funding agency that is dedicated to funding research in Nigeria. But we have like some agencies, some ad hoc agencies that could, fund, like one of them is TED Fund. So TED Fund funds research in education. So that's one example that you can get resource funding from. Another could be intergovernmental organizations or institutions. So that's if you're looking at international funding now. So you can have them like British Council, the FCDO, that's formerly the DFID, USAID, World Bank, IDRC. So these are international organizations, international governmental institutions rather, that provide grants for education or for research rather. And then private sector also funds. So we have the likes of Google, we'll have the likes of Facebook, McKinsey. So currently Google is currently funding research and evaluation studies currently into learning, how low-tech learning, how children in disadvantaged areas are actually learning, or if they are learning through low-tech or high-tech and low-tech technology devices around African countries and other developing countries. So these are kind of researches that you can access funding from the private sector. And you can understand that Google's interest in wanting to even know if children are learning through low-tech or even high-tech technology devices. And then we have maybe the INGOs, that's the international non-governmental organizations, somewhat like Action Aid, Oxfam, Open Society. So these organizations as well also provide research grants. And then most popular is the foundations. So foundations and charities like the Go Foundation, the Gates Foundation. In Nigeria, we have Wando Foundation. There's also the MasterCard Foundation at the global level and even in Nigeria. So these are the different kinds of ways that you can actually access, or different kinds of structures where you can access research funding from. But of course, we know that there are challenges to accessing research funds, even from these organizations. There are different challenges for assessing them. One challenge would be inadequate funding. That's the major issue anyway. That's where to start from generally. And this is because research is capital intensive, like it's resource intensive, and it requires a sustainable and focused funding supported by an ecosystem that is designed deliberately to support knowledge and harness innovation. And so you can understand that in a place like in countries or regions like Africa and countries like Nigeria, where we don't exactly have like a national research funder, we do not exactly, and neither do we even have a national research policy. I think the closest thing we have is the national education policy, which doesn't exactly do justice to research. So you can see that research may not exactly be prioritized in regions like this. And that's what makes it even difficult, because then you find that most of the research in the region are largely funded by international funding. So, and even that increases the level of competition for applicants or for researchers looking for funds, because then you're competing against a global pool. And that's where most African think tanks, consultancy, researchers actually then come at a disadvantage because of subsequent challenges that I will try to talk about. Another challenge would be stringent conditions, especially when they're coming from international funders. So funders usually would have very difficult to meet conditions for assessing these grants. And for example, for an African researcher or for an African think tank who is just trying to meet requirements, or has just probably survived the last experience of applying for something and knows what to then put up for the next one, you come on board again, you meet another set of criteria, and you're trying to meet up. So it's sometimes that these conditions are quite difficult to meet. So you have African researchers somewhat at a disadvantage trying to meet up with all of these criteria. And then there could also be limited research grants in particular disciplines or particular areas of study. For example, in education, the bulk of research in education goes to primary education. So that's where the bulk of the financing goes to. And right now, there's the global trend right now is tilting towards early childhood education. So you see, and foundational literacy and numeracy. So these are areas where finance is going towards. So if you're interested in sections like, or in disciplines like, say, TVET, adult education, higher education, they're funding for those areas, but it may not exactly be as more as for someone who is focused or researching around areas in primary education. So that's one other thing that could be a challenge. Another would be lack of access to information. I'm just going to try and go fast. Lack of access to information. Researchers don't typically have enough early information to set up with their proposal writing very early and gather information or even understand the call for the request for proposals. So they have little time. Time frame is very short to fill up or to fulfill all requirements, and that could be an issue. Then very important is the poor writing research proposal skills and even poor research capabilities for many African researchers. So you find out that we struggle with skills, research skills. And that's not to say that the African continent doesn't have qualified researchers, no, but it's an area that is very honestly so. We still struggle with quality research. And sometimes funding is one of the reasons why we have poor research production in the region. So these are one of the issues where researchers then do not have funding being allocated to them because maybe they don't have the skills, because part of the evaluation criteria for granting funds for research would be your qualification, your infrastructural capability, your institutional capability, and all of that. So if they're able to judge from your evaluation stage that you're not able to fulfill these criteria, it puts you at a disadvantage. And that's something that African researchers typically suffer. And you see a lot of collaboration with international agencies just to access funding for research. Then we don't have enough network of researchers. We don't have effective collaboration. And that's why I'm very happy about what Louis and his team are doing today. It's one of the things that could help the continent produce more research work and improve the quality of our research to even attract funding and maybe even get the attention of our African leaders to prioritize research in the continent. So quickly, I'm just going to go straight into strategies for assessing fund. And I'm going to try and I've just tried to lump them into 4 themes, just because I know I don't have the time to be able to delineate it as detailed as it would be. So I think the first place to start from would be understanding the purpose of your research. And what Dr. Sunday said at the beginning of his conversation was very important about having problem action research focused on solving problems. So as a researcher, I think the first place to start from would be to understanding the purpose of your research. Is your research is it an applied studies? Is it a theoretical study? You need to understand what you're actually setting out to do, identify your niche areas within the discipline, and understand how they are prioritized, like I said, in terms of contextual relevance as well as global relevance. So these are things that unfortunately affect how funding flows. So, but you need to be aware of them and not assume that they don't happen, but because it's true, they do happen. And then you also need to understand how your research idea, your research interest is going to be contributing to the body of knowledge. How is it? And right now, like Dr. Sunday said, the focus of funders, international funders, is on what works. Like everyone is tired of spending money on issues, on wicked problems. So people are just, what works? How does it work? Why does it work? So these are the main issues right now. And research proposals that come off with this kind of disposition, or with this kind of propositions rather, tend to get more attention, because now people just want to know what works. Why is it working? How is it working? We've been spending money in this sector or in this way for too long. Can we innovate? How can we change things? How can we get results? And you see people like the World Bank talking about result-based financing. That's what a lot of people are interested in. So you need to understand the purpose of your research. You need to even understand, and because if you understand that, it leads you to the next question, which is my next point. The purpose of your research actually determines the source of your research. So the source of your research talks about who is going to pay for your research, where you're getting the money from, where the funding is going to come from. So it means that if you then understand this, you know then that not everybody is just going to give you money. So this means you then know that the funders are interested in specific areas. And it's your responsibility to know which funder is interested in the area that you're also interested in. So take, for example, you cannot be interested in a subject like in a space like, say, workforce development, and then approach a foundation like Lego Foundation. Lego Foundation is interested in early childhood learning, especially through play. So people like teaching at the right level can actually have access to this kind of funding because the methodology that TAO proposes incorporates elements of play and flexibility around the classroom and flexible pedagogy. So if you're thinking about workforce development, you cannot be thinking about Lego. You might want to think about places like MasterCard, because MasterCard is more focused on, workforce development, human capital development, livelihood, and the rest of it. If you have a research proposal bordering on social justice, you might be thinking about approaching organizations or looking at for organizations like Open Society, Oxfam, Action Aid. Those are people, and those are kind of organizations that tend to have more interest in social justice proposals and conversations. So you get fundings from them. So if you typically then go to a World Bank with such kind of proposal, not to say the World Bank isn't big on social justice, no, but the World Bank is actually right now, the appetite is very huge on result-based financing and innovation. So these are areas where they are most interested in. So you may not, that's how to catch their attention. So you have to target your funder and target where the money is going to come from and not just scatter your energy across, you just be exhausted. Then the major, all right, Chloe, thank you. So the major section also that hinders African researchers from then, even maybe when you even assess research one time, from then assessing research a second time or even subsequently, is the execution of your research. And with this part, you see that it depends mostly on your capacity and your ability as a researcher to live up to the promise of your proposal. And this requires competence as a researcher, institutional competence as well, and capacity to carry out the study. And so I usually, and even my organization where I work, we're very big on partnerships. We're very big on collaboration. So sometimes when we're going for some project and we understand, you just tend to evaluate the scope of the project and you already know that maybe you may not have the capacity to to carry it out especially when you're doing in different countries. It's very important to think about collaborations. Look out for collaborations, very important, whether regional collaborations, international collaborations, work with university departments. This helps to strengthen your proposal and strengthen your chances for getting this. Because like I said earlier, evaluation actually borders around your capacity, your qualification, and your capacity to deliver as well, especially. And sometimes you get some funders would actually ask you to get recommendation letters from the previous funder that you've worked with. And so if you've had bad records in those places, you don't expect to have like good recommendation to then assess more funding. So rather than have or suffer reputational damage, it's very important to actually think about collaboration, because we even have individual researchers coming to us as well and collaborating with us and working on projects. And I think that's a very good way to build research in Africa. Then I'm just going to stop very quickly with just brief discussion about accountability. When research fund is eventually granted to a researcher, I think it's very important that researchers use the funds that they have gotten for exactly what the proposal or what the contract has agreed on or has said. So that's why it's very important to have your finance team, your admin team, your legal team, operations team at the very early stage of your research building, your research proposal development stage, such that you're able to think through all of the processes that your research entails, and you are not caught off guard when you go into the field, and you're able to fully represent every aspect of your research in your proposal. So you don't go into the field and realize that you might need to buy a van to be able to access some remote areas, or just some unexpected expenses, which then begins to put you in a questionable light with regards to how you've been able to appropriate funding, because these things are very important to funders. They're very strict on research funds. They want to be sure that you're able to justify every funding and every single kobo or penny or pound or something that you have gotten from them. So you need to be able to be accountable to the money that you receive at the end of the day when you do get it, because these are things that actually hinder African researchers from getting subsequent funding. So I'm just going to stop here now and yield the floor back to Louis. And hopefully when we get in the plenary session, we can have more conversations. So thank you very much, Louis. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you so much, Onyinye, for that very brilliant presentation. And you walked us through an entire journey of developing your idea in terms of your research, identifying exactly what your purpose is, like buttressing what Dr. had said earlier as well, in terms of so many different things. And then you walked us all the way through accessing the funding. What are the places that you need to write to? How do you get all of these different opportunities to access the funds? And then when you access the fund, what do you need to do? And I think that where you actually ended on in terms of accountability is really, really important, because this is one aspect in funding that many times we pay very little attention to. And it's really important because not only for you as a researcher, but for other people, writing to similar organizations from similar countries and, making similar claims or pleas. I think this is a really, really brilliant things that you've all said. So thank you again for that brilliant conversation, presentations, Dr. Olanyo and Onyinye, for that. Again, thank you everyone who have been here since we have a lot of people from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Malawi, Zimbabwe, if I haven't, Mauritius, Mauritania, so many different countries here on the platform. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask. But we have a few questions. So Dr. Olanyo, if you can turn on your microphone and your video, and Onyinye as well, so we can have this discussion together. If anybody has a question that you want to ask in person, please let us know. Just raise up your hand, and then we can see how to allow you do that. And it's also very important that we mention the fact that a lot of things are changing in the education sector as a result of the challenges of COVID-19, and then the fact that we cannot hide from the fact that things has to change and we need to invest into it. I was listening to the conversation between Dr. Mo, the Minister for Education in Nigeria, in Lagos, Commissioner for Education in Lagos, and someone from Kenya, and it was absolutely brilliant about government engagement in understanding the science of education. I think this is where we need to get to as researchers, engaging the right set of people with the quality of the work that we're doing. So I do not, I'm going to ask you some, so we have some questions that we have actually gotten before this session, and some of them are still coming in. I hope we can take a few of them, and then as time goes on, we can address them later. This first question that I have says, can individuals without professional affiliation with educational institutions access grants for research? And I think either of you can take that, but maybe Onyinye, let's start from you.
Okay, yes, I think that individuals can actually do that, but it mostly depends on the funder, to be honest. It depends on the funder, but individuals actually go apply for research funds, and then it would depend on the type of research funding that you're going for as well. So as an individual, if you're going for a research fund, say like, what's it called now? Like a fellowship. So recently, the Global Education Monitoring Report just announced its new set of fellows for the year. And they had actually before now put out proposal applications. So if you have a topic around the next if you have a research interest around the next focus of the Global Education Monitoring Report, which is going to be on technology, you were advised to apply. And so those kind of research funding are actually the easier kind of funding or research grants that individuals can access without stress. But most of the time, I would advise that as an individual, if you're going for a consultancy, yes, that's fine. If you're going for a large scale project, just go for collaborations and collaborate with institutions that have the capacity to help you improve your advantage or your chances of securing that kind of funding. So I think that's how I would answer the question. I'd like to hear what Dr. Sunday would say.
Thank you. Dr. Olanyo. Dr. Olanyo.
That the fellow, if you actually, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, please go on.
Okay, yeah. Someone without an institutional affiliation can also collaborate with an individual with an affiliation. We have several researchers that are open to collaborations, and is actually going to enhance the results or the performance of the application. If you have someone you are collaborating with and that person is an experienced researcher, especially if the person has won some grants in the past, it's actually going to boost that particular application. So I think that is a very good consideration.
So two things that I just want to draw from that is understanding the importance of track record and the importance of collaboration. So these are two things that I think I can draw from your response, and I think that really answers it. This question says, how can we decongest academic project shelves in higher education institutions and get research to the right hands for the right action and implementation? I think this is just really talking about how a lot of academic projects that we do in universities do not see the light of day in terms of contributing to social development. So I think I would like to start this one from Dr. Sunday, because you work in a university and you deal with this on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think that's the basis of what we're actually talking about today. We need to look at issues, current issues, issue-based research. What I realize in most of our university today is that people are just doing research for research's sake, for wanting to get marks or for wanting to graduate. I think research has moved from that. We need to look at the issues in our environment. We need to look at issues that our nation is facing and design our research towards that. And I think earlier I was talking about sustainable development goals, issues like out of school children and all that. Then another thing I would like to emphasize on is the need for our educational administrator to revisit most of the courses that we are offering at the university level. There are some courses that we need to redesign, even if it requires that we change the nomenclature of that course in order to suit the problems that we are facing in our society today. So if we are able to do that, most of the research work that the student will be doing will also be tailored towards those issues. So that's a good way to bring that game changer on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Olanyo, for saying that. Onye, I don't know if you want to add something to that as well.
No, I think, to be honest, the research in Africa is the reason why we can think that they are in shelves, like they're forgotten and all that, is because I think we need to do more, even beyond the level of a researcher, even as students. We need to do more in terms of critically thinking about the problems around us, the problem around our society, and contextualize our research interests for development within our continent, within our country, within our communities. If you do that, I think for example, it's first of all, it's even more exciting. Honestly, like it's more exciting to have those kind of researches that you can actually think about, that you can see that it can work out into actual results, produce actual solutions. So if you have those kind of research and have this kind of research delivering innovations or suggesting new models for solving problems, I think they are easily picked up and they wouldn't be just forgotten, like putting them in the shelves and all that. So maybe more action research, more result-focused research on how to solve the many problems that we have.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of other questions, but because of time, we wouldn't be able to address all of them. But we have a hands raised, and this is from Sheriff Alao. So if you can, I'm going to ask you to unmute. I've already unmuted you now, so you can please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you very much. I need to first commend the presenters for this wonderful presentation so far. Yes, there are two critical issues that are raised. There's funding and the challenges of researchers in Africa here. Yeah, I want to ask a question about what is the nexus between a researcher and his or institutions in securing funding. Take for instance, I'm from Obafemi Awolowo University. What is the chances of getting funding because of that kind of school? And secondly, what is the fate of private institutions, researchers from private institutions in securing funding? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think the two questions are questions that both of you can answer from different angles. You work in education in financing, Onye, and Doctor, you work in a university. So I'm just going to hand it over to both of you.
Okay. For private institutions, I think there's a good chance of getting research funding. Your chance is as good as any other person, any other place in the world. You get, but that's not to say we don't have our limitations because of like the things that I had mentioned. But you have a good chance if you're able to prove yourself, prove through your proposal that you have the capacity to deliver. And then it's better when you have had even previous experiences where you have delivered, you have a portfolio or profile of projects that you have been able to implement or research that you've been able to implement, and then the quality of them is high. So it's not enough to just, because you are a Obafemi Awolowo University, think that your name alone is going to get it. No, the quality of your research, the rigor of your research has to, be of good quality to be able to ensure that you're able to assess subsequent one. Private organizations as well as institutions get research funding. For us at TEP Center, we actually have most of our projects that we handle are actually from international organizations. We get a lot of them, so we don't actually struggle to get research funding. Why? Because we have a track record for delivering on high quality research, high quality evaluations. So we already have that, and sometimes we don't even have to go after research. It comes to us. We don't have to go after a project, it comes to us because over time you have been able to build a profile of high quality contribution to the body of knowledge. And funders can trust you that you're an accountable organization, an accountable individual, and that you can do what you said you will do. So I think that's one way to look at it as well.
Great. Dr. Sunday.
Okay, just to add to that, I would like to say that most of the funders, especially the international funders now, are not actually interested in whether you are from public or you are from private universities. What they're actually looking for is how good or how rich is your research proposal. And I will actually try to encourage us, especially most of us that are young researchers, to make ourselves available. The importance of feasibility is actually, it cannot be overemphasized by ensuring that we are available in almost all the research platforms that we have, research social media platforms like ResearchGate, Google Scholar, and some other platforms like that, where funders can meet us and can see most of the previous work that we have done. Then in terms of someone working with a university like Obafemi Awolowo University, I do understand that university also give a kind of leverage. There are some research grants that if you apply from a federal university in Nigeria, maybe they are going to consider you first before considering someone from a state university. So I know there is that kind of advantage that is available, but that one alone cannot, I don't think can, really be a game changer if we have not actually developed what we need to develop, which is our research capacity and our research base. So that's what I just have to say about that.
Thank you very much, Onye and Dr. Olanyo, for that very brilliant response. I knew that the questions were in very good hands when I handed it over to you directly, and you did justice to it. And everybody commenting in the chat box also said that as well, because you just like hit the nail on the head. And I think it's really important at this point to just let us know that what we are trying to do, like I said, is creating a community, that hub of education researchers from across Africa. And I'm so delighted that we have a lot of people from different parts of the continent here at the meeting today. And again, also to inform everyone that this is going to happen at least for the next 6 months. So from now till December, the plan is to consistently have this 1 hour session that will bring people from different sectors to talk to us, and then we can exchange ideas on how to improve our work. And one thing that I think came out strongly today is the area of collaboration. And I think we might also in subsequent times know how to dwell on that. And I think right now is a time to tell you to look forward to forthcoming editions of this program. We have your emails and we're going to contact you. But if you have any other question that you want to ask that we haven't answered, we want to stay to our word. It's already 3 minutes past the time that we plan to end, and but we don't want to keep you any longer. If you have any other question, please feel free to send them across. We will forward them over to the speakers, and they can address them, and then we'll compile them in a way that we can forward them back to you. The recording of this video of this session will also be made available to you after the session. Only people who are here will probably be able to access that, but we will definitely make it available to you as well. And we would like you to also begin to engage with one another. In subsequent times, we're still trying to create how we're going to make the hub work such that people can begin to exchange ideas and begin to collaborate. So I want to really thank you, Dr. Olanyo, for your wonderful presentation and for your contributions in the interactive session. And Onyinye, thank you so much, Onyinye Nkocha, for your wonderful presentation on financing and for your wonderful contributions as well. So I'm going to pass on to you to give your final words, both of you, as we close.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to appreciate everyone for this very enriching conversation. I put something as a message, but I saw that it went to Advanced Edge as a direct message.
Okay, I'm going
just to add that I want to believe there is no an individual without affiliation. If you are not currently working with a research institute or with a university, you can as well make use of your institution of undergraduate or graduate studies as your affiliation. I remember very well that the first scholarship I won when I was doing my master's program, at that time I was not actually working with any university. I just used my university where I was doing my master's program as my affiliation at that time, and I was able to get that particular scholarship. So we can go ahead and use that. And on that note, I want to appreciate everyone, and I want to say that let's keep collaborating and let's keep discussing issues in the eyes of educational-based research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Onyinye, just before I come to you, I just want to say that I acknowledge the fact that we have a lot of powerful individuals in this session today, people that we will definitely be bringing to come and speak to us, people like Dr. Mo, who I respect. She's a godmother for those of us working in the education sector. And Dr. Mo, thank you. I can see your comment and brilliant session yesterday as well as part of the GPE. And for everyone that we have from all over the continent, thank you. Onyinye, I'm going to pass on to you now to give your final words as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Advanced Edge Africa. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session today. And thank you, Dr. Sunday, as well. I think
I can't hear you again. Is it just me, or can we not hear you again?
you can.
I cannot
Hello?
hear as well. I think
Okay, okay. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So I was just saying that I think that it is very important for African researchers to begin to continue to put themselves out there, like Dr. Sandy said, write as much as you can, especially for young or early career researchers. Put yourself out there, collaborate more, write more, just continue to build the skill. And because we need a very robust body of knowledge in our region, and we not leave it to the hands of other persons to help us, to tell us what knowledge is important or what knowledge is relevant for our own context. So we need to be able to produce our own knowledge. We need to be able to put it out there and produce it in high quality such that we're able to also compete with every other person. So that's what I'm just going to say for Research in Africa. Thank you again for having me. It's very interesting to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. On this note, I'd like to really appreciate our speakers. I'm speaking now on behalf of all the participants and all members of Advantage Africa to appreciate Dr. Olanyo for this great session and Onyinye Nkocha for this great session as well. Also to appreciate our academic partner, the University of Sussex, United Kingdom, where I had studied, where Onyinye has studied as well. And it's such a delight. And we hope that subsequently would have some people from the university as well, academic graduates and stuff, to also come around. And I also want to appreciate the fact that we have a lot of people from countries that I wasn't even like thinking of. We have Lesotho in the building. We have Mauritania, Mauritius. We have so many different countries, Ethiopia, and so many countries. I believe that we'll keep going. So what we'll do is the link that we have shared, you can also share them with your colleagues in your universities or in your countries. Please let us all collectively look forward to the next session, and it promises to be a lot better next month and in the coming months as well. So thank you very much for this great session. Please feel free to write to us if you have any other question, and I'm sure my colleagues are going to share that as well. Also, I want to appreciate all members of Advantage Africa for the hard work in the background. A lot of you already know Joel from all the communications that you've received, but also we have Victor Emaye, we have Olawale Olagoke, we have Dominique Okonkwo, we have Arinze Yamanekwe, and that's all from me. Thank you all for joining, and I look forward to receiving you again next month. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a nice day.